In the weeks and months leading up to the invasion of Ukraine, Russian President Putin repeatedly rejected accusations that he was planning to start a war. Putin lied, and he is most likely lying again about his army's next moves. That is the message from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Take a listen.
According to our intelligence, Russian units are not withdrawing, but repositioning. Russia is trying to regroup, resupply, and reinforce its offensive in the Donbas region. At the same time, Russia maintains pressure on Kiev and other cities. So we can expect additional offensive actions, bringing even more suffering.
Well, for some military analysis of what's happening in Ukraine, I'd like to bring in Bill Roggio. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and an analyst on security issues. He joins me tonight from Bedford, New Jersey. Bill, it's good to have you on the program. Let's look at where we are right now, 6 weeks into the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Do you see anything to suggest that, as claimed by Moscow, that Russian forces have succeeded in completing a first stage and that they're now moving on to a second stage?
I think there's some truth in that. Look, if we listened to the reports at the beginning of the war, the Russian military ran out of gas 5 weeks ago. Their troops were defecting, things of that nature. I've maintained from the very beginning that however this war would play out, it would be long. It would take, we're looking at time scales of months here. The Russians, I believe, have the advantage here, despite their tactical blunders and some failures. They have made advances, particularly in the south and in the east. The Black Sea, other than Odessa, is all under Russian control right now, as is the Sea of Azov. The Russians have made significant advances in the Donbas region. And I think that's the real, I maintained, again, from the beginning of this conflict, that the Russians, if they can cut off the Ukrainian troops, and I've read up to a third of the Ukrainian military is based on that front in the Donbas. If the Russians can encircle them, and that is what they're working towards doing, then that would effectively demilitarize the Ukrainian government. So I think, Kiev was a failure for the Russians, at least at the outset, and yet Russian troops are still positioned there. They are regrouping and reorganizing. I would expect at this level, at this stage of the campaign, this is about the right time to reorganize your military and plan your next moves. The Ukrainians, while they've taken a modest amount of territory around Kiev, they have not driven the Russians from the areas. So again, whatever tactical failures the Russians have had, they have had strategic success to a degree in certain areas.
Well, this is a dismal picture that you're painting for Ukrainian forces moving forward then. So you say that it's still the Russians' ball game here that's being played.
I do think so. I mean, we hear a lot about the Russian losses. What we're not hearing about is Ukrainian losses. How many tanks, how many airplanes have the Ukrainians lost? What are their casualties? I think the numbers that we're hearing on the Russian casualties, I think they're taking significant casualties, but they're estimated to have about 200,000 troops in country. If they lost 40,000 troops killed and wounded, the majority of the Russian forces there would be tasked with evacuating those casualties. So, what we're experiencing right now, and it's giving us a skewed view of this conflict, is a very effective information war being waged by the Ukrainians. I agree. I mean, if I was the Ukrainians, I would be doing the same thing in order to boost morale and try to get Western countries to continue to contribute to the effort. Mm-hmm. But if there was a ceasefire today, the Russians would have to leave the environs around Kiev. They surround several major cities. They control a significant portion of Ukraine. And the Ukrainians would have to make significant concessions to get the Russian troops, say, out of Kharkiv and Ukraine to leave. They're probably going to have to cede large areas of the east and the south.
Bill, I want to get your reaction then to what we heard today from Jeremy Fleming, the head of the UK's Intelligence, Cyber and Security Agency, the GCHQ. Take a listen.
We've seen Russian soldiers short of weapons and morale, refusing to carry out orders, sabotaging their own equipment, and even accidentally shooting down their own aircraft. And even though we believe Putin's advisors are afraid to tell him the truth, what's going on and the extent of these misjudgments must be crystal clear to the regime.
So he's painting a much dire picture for the Russians than what you are intimating, Bill. I mean, what do you say to that?
How many Russian troops have destroyed their equipment or defected? How many friendly fire incidents, which, by the way, happened in warfare? How many incidents of that has occurred? He's making claims, but he's not giving us the extent of it. I have no doubt that there are issues with the Russian military. They are having failures. I have no doubt there's been defections and there's been destroyed equipment. In countries that are, like Russia, I would expect a level of that. But yet the Russians still remain on the doorstep of Kiev and Kharkiv and control significant territory. Again, it gets back to, we heard well over a month ago, the Russians had run out of gas and their logistics don't work. And yet they're still parked in many of the same positions where they were 5 weeks ago.
NATO has constantly said that it aims to avoid direct confrontation with Russia, but it is giving weapons to Ukraine. And, the White House later clarified, President Biden did say that Vladimir Putin could not stay in office. I mean, how long do you think the West can keep up this tightrope act?
Yeah, this is the real question. Whose time is time on the Ukrainian side and the West side or the Russian side? I don't think sanctions have worked the way the West state actually thought. The ruble is back almost to the pre-war value. I realize the Russians are doing a lot to prop it up. But then again, the U.S. is going to release a million or a billion barrels of oil a day from a strategic reserve to bring down gas prices. This is what countries do at war. I can't answer the question of who blinks first, but the West, Europe is highly dependent on Russian gas and oil. When do they tire of this conflict? When do the Ukrainians begin to tire of their cities and towns being destroyed, of 1/11 of their country of their citizens have fled the country, and another 6 million are internally displaced? I saw over a week ago, it was estimated they've lost 63 billion in infrastructure. So, I'm not saying this to be negative towards the Ukrainians here. I'm saying we're getting a very skewed picture of this war. There is negatives and positives happening on both sides. The Ukrainians have fought valiantly. They fought better than anyone thought they would, and they're holding the Russians back. But holding them back is not the same as driving them out.
Yeah, you bring up some very good points, Bill, and it's good to have this dose of reality thrown in to the coverage of this war. Bill Roggio of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Bill, we appreciate your time and your context. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.